So as we review the principles of unsound chess, we want to look at number 3 here. And number 3 is play lines that limit responses, dictate the kind of game you play, yet still require precision. Um, when I was a young man, I played Paul Keres in a simul, and he destroyed me with the wing gambit. And I watched him play a number of wing gambits against a number of people because I had plenty of time on my hands following my defeat. And it was very interesting to see how he pushed pawns. I think d5 is about the favorite move he ever made in his chess career. He got in d5 on all kinds of people. So what's interesting is how little people know about the wing gambit. And the wing gambit is not what I would consider to be a completely sound gambit. Black can actually get an advantage if he does things correctly. And while I'm not interested in going into the details of how to do things correctly, occasionally people who use machines who play me find that a perfectly correct line. And I really don't think that some of the ratings of the players that I play are familiar enough with the wing gambit to play such perfection for 15 straight moves. But I'm going to show you a game now that had to do with something that Paul Keres did and against me. And it starts out with e4. I played e4 in this particular game. c5, and now the merits of this are people spend their lives studying various types of Sicilian defenses in order to dictate what kind of game they want to play as black, and you could go into like 5 different lines very quickly, and unless you know all of them as white, black is going to start dictating what happens, unless you happen to play a King's Indian attack against it or something. So the wing gambit, however, takes them pretty much out of their game. Usually they only have one stack response to it, and that's the wrong one. When they play e6, they're just inviting you to take and recapture tempo. Now have a nice center. See, now it's not even a gambit anymore. He declined it incorrectly. From here on in, I have the virtue of developing what amounts to be a kind of a French defense. He's playing a French defense if he ever gets in d5, which he chooses not to do in this game. He's going to fianchetto his queen bishop because, after all, French defense does have a bit of an issue with a queen bishop usually. However, when he doesn't play d5, I'm going to get an e5 for free. Now, the computer at this point desperately wanted me to play c4 and bishop to e4 and claimed that I'd get at least a pawn and a half advantage from it. That's not something that I'm accustomed to doing or even like doing. For one thing, he plays c4, chases knight to b4, and attacks my bishop, and then a variety of other things happen timing-wise. So f5, according to the computers, is not an error. It's a pretty decent move, and at this point black actually has equality. However, it's not the kind of equality he really likes. The kind of equality he likes is a dynamic Sicilian position. Here he's got some sort of very strange sort of looking Dutch or French. So now we're going to take en passant, because I like having the isolated dual pawns in the middle for black, and I still am reserving c4. And I'm also playing for a bit of an advantage. Right now the threat is, of course, bishop takes knight, something takes bishop back, and then queen to e4, skewering the h-pawn and the rook both. So he has to deal with this, and the easy way to deal with it is simply to move his bishop. And now I develop my knight, again planning on bringing my knight somewhere, possibly c4, e5, maybe in the future d6, maybe developing rooks first. And now he attacks my d-pawn, which doesn't really need covering. But moving c3 gives me a backwards pawn on an open file. There are other things it also does. It takes away a lot of counterplay for a period of time. And if I need to move my rook to c1, which probably should be on a semi-open file anyway, I can retreat my bishop to a place like b1. The virtue of c3 also is it prevents the knight to b4 maneuver, which takes away my favorite bishop on d3. So if I move it to c1 and the bishop comes back to b1, then I have queen to d3, and it's all in a protected environment where it begins to attack the king side. So he's decided that he's going to play over on the king side. I start occupying space in the middle. He trades. I trade. And at this point, once again, the computer says that I have an advantage if I do the appropriate things. And the appropriate thing, apparently, at this point is not to do what I did, although it does look like an ugly mate threat that I have. There are things he can do to defeat this, and I'm not going to go into great detail about them right now, but obviously he could probably play bishop takes bishop right now, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it, because he's going to end up losing his queen, because after queen takes pawn check, king to f7, bishop to g6 check, skewers things. All that's also happens to be mate. So, but I'm sorry, it's not mate because the bishop's no longer in e7. Queen win is enough, though. So now he's played the incorrect move here. Rook to f5 is a tempting move to make. However, if you notice, it does line things up rather poorly, and it permits me to play c4, which I did not play. I wanted to play for a little bigger game here. C4 would have actually won his bishop. Now, the move prior to this, he could have moved bishop to c6, which could have defended that situation a little better over there, but once again, now he can also move bishop to c6, and he can start to defend what's there, but he's going to lose his rook. So from here on in, I had a choice of like winning his bishop with c4 or going this direction, and this is a little precarious because I could end up with a queen that's in a trapped position in the back here. I needed to take time to avoid getting checked, and he's now attacking my bishop and threatening to come back to g6 in some iterations, and possibly even trap my queen eventually, and I have to be careful of that. So what I've decided to do here is I've decided to oppose his bishop. I want to get my knight to e4 if at all possible, and he protects his bishop. My knight's coming to e4 anyway. And at this point, the game's probably over. I don't really think there's a lot he can do to save this, but he can try retreating, but that's the wrong piece to retreat. And now, as you're going to see, this is a player who's rated close to 2100. So he's going to end up losing his queen and resigning. And that's the end of the game, but it gives you an idea. It was an imprecise game that did show the virtues of what happens when you don't know how to deal with a gambit. If you spend your life preparing for a Sicilian defense and somebody won't play the Sicilian defense against you and they're going to play the wing gambit, you could end up in a kind of a game that you're not familiar with, and it could be a very disappointing experience. And in this particular case, it was. And I, once again, have taken somebody out of their book and gotten them into something that they don't really need to get into. And that is the principle of unsound chess.